We had the big event, perhaps, of the week was President Biden's address to that joint session of Congress. I think it's fair to say an ambitious set of proposals out there, and an ambitious set of tax increases as well. What did you make of it?
Big event of the week. It may have been the big event of the year. I think it was probably the most consequential first address to Congress by a president since Ronald Reagan declared a redirection of the country in 1981. The president is betting on a very different role of government in American lives. He's betting on a very different economic philosophy than we've had before. Whether it succeeds or whether it fails, this is hugely consequential. My own view is that the impulses behind it, that government can be a constructive force, that we need much more public investment, that we need much more social protection for middle-class families, that we need to strengthen institutions like labor unions that stand up for working people. I think all of that is correct. I am concerned that progressives have a tendency to overreach, and that you need to be progressive, but you also need to get the arithmetic right. And I am worried that this program could overheat the economy with some potentially serious economic consequences and some serious political consequences down the road for progressives. David, I think the biggest news for me since I started expressing these concerns 2 or 3 months ago is that I think we're seeing rising evidence of labor shortages. You can see that in small business surveys where we're at record levels in terms of difficulties in finding labor. You can see that in terms of the data on job vacancies, which are at near record levels that usually would go with 3.5% unemployment, not with 6% unemployment. You can see it in a large number of anecdotes that people are telling. You can see it, and maybe this is the best measure, in the fact that workers are quitting at rates they usually quit at during booms, which suggests that this isn't just a sectoral thing, but is a pretty pervasive phenomenon in the economy. And if we're having that kind of job shortage at a time when the economy is still in front of what almost everybody thinks is going to be a very substantial boom over the next 6 months, I am concerned about inflation and inflation expectations.
Well, Larry, on that point, what about the law of unintended consequences? Did we go too far in some of the relief, particularly the supplemental unemployment benefits? We had Daniel Boulud, the chef and the restaurateur, on, who said, look, he's trying to get people to come back for his restaurants, and they're all saying, talk to me after the summer, because, by the way, that happens to be when those benefits go away. Did we go too far?
Yes. It was unemployment insurance is hugely functional. And it's hugely important, and it was the right thing to strengthen unemployment insurance. But we know that if you insure people's houses for more than they're worth, some people will burn down their houses. And if we give people more money for not working than they were getting when they were working, then people are going to stay on the sidelines. And unfortunately, for probably a majority of the people on unemployment insurance, they're getting more money on unemployment insurance than they were getting when they were working. And that's just misdesigned policy, and it's kind of an unforced error that is having consequences. And I hope that when it expires, we'll continue to be reforming unemployment insurance. But I hope and trust that after September, we're not going to have these kinds of above 100% replacement of income rates. I hope also we're going to look at eligibility for unemployment insurance and make sure that the people who are getting it are people who are really ready and willing to work. we did what was probably necessary a year ago at the height of the COVID panic. So I'm not second guessing that. But going forward, we're going to need to be normalizing with respect to unemployment insurance and to some extent with respect to benefit payments more generally.
Larry, let's wrap it up with a lightning round, as Summer says. Number one, cryptocurrency. Going forward, 3 years, 5 years, will it be a larger function of the traditional economy or smaller?
I've changed my mind about this. I think it's here to stay. I think more institutions will be engaged with it. I'm not going to predict the price of Bitcoin, but I think crypto and digital payments are going to be a larger deal in all our lives than they've been historically.
We got first quarter GDP numbers this week. Did they indicate the economy is stronger or not quite so strong as we expected?
I think it's an economy on fire. You know, GDP was in the sixes, and on top of that, you had massive inventory decumulation, which will be made up next year. You had an increase in imports. So if you looked at the change in spending, the increase in spending domestically, that was close to being at double-digit rates. And I think that's going to be with us for some time to come. So my sense is that the economy is even more fiery than I had supposed.
So economy on fire isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the third subject I want to come back to, we talk about it fairly regularly, is inflation. You've been concerned about the possibility of inflation getting out of control. What's your level of confidence in our ability to control inflation right now?
I'm a bit more worried because of the labor shortages that we were talking to. We're seeing more labor shortages and more bottlenecks sooner than I thought. And, you know, Jay Powell was asked about my views the other day, and he said in his press conference that it's all transitory factors. He might be right, but the Fed chairman who did the most talking about transitory factors were the Fed chairman we had in the mid-'70s, and that's when inflation was accelerating very rapidly. So I hope he's right, but I don't think this is going to be quite as transient as many suppose.